How exciting. Welcome to our very first episode of Podcasting for Business. Now, if you're a business owner, Ronsley and I have created this show to help you grow your audience, get new clients, and turn your podcast into a leverageable asset. To be very clear, this is a show for business owners. It's not for hobby podcasters. Not for hobby podcasters. Each episode will be sharing the tips, tools, and strategies that will make your podcast the greatest amplifier your business has ever seen. And we also want to make you part of the Podcasting for Business show. So if you're a business owner and want to share a little bit about your business journey or how a podcast has helped or hindered your business, we'd love to hear from you. So just drop a comment or send us a DM so we can get you involved in the Podcasting for Business show. Even if you agree or disagree with something that we've shared or have any thoughts about it, you can let us know in the comments. To give you a bit of an overview of what to expect from the Podcasting for Business show, since this is our very first episode, what we're going to do is each time we begin with a segment we're calling Useful Chatter, where we share what's making news in the world of podcasting and business and why you should care. After that, we'll move into today's tactic, where we share a simple thing you can do to upgrade your podcast and grow your business right now. And the tactic that we're going to cover today in this episode will make sure your podcast gets heard by the right people, and you'll get an overview of the different audiences that you'll be exposed to and how you can create engaging content for them. Also, each episode, we're going to bring on a special guest to share the most important and actionable moments from their business journey so you can learn from them about what you can implement in your own way. And today we've got someone who's definitely going to bring the energy. We can guarantee you of that. And finally, we'll cover a big mistake that business owners make with their podcast so you can improve the quality of your show and get better results for your business right now. And the big mistake that we'll go through today in this episode is poor or no follow-up with your guest once the interview has been completed. So we'll show you how to alleviate that. And we're very serious about giving you actionable help on this show. So if there's a resource or a framework that we go through or that we mention that you'd like access to, just let us know in the comments and we'll find a way to get that to you. All right, to kick things off now, let's move into Useful Chatter. And I'd like to bring on Ronsley. Rons, how are you doing, my friend? Whoop, I can't hear you. You're on mute. This is, of course,
It's
tech happens. Especially there we go.
it's really interesting to do this show to have all these things lined up, make sure that the mute button is in the right spot. But yeah, how exciting! I mean, it's something that we wanted to do for a while. We've spoken about it quite often, um, and not really put a plan together, I suppose. So getting to a point where we've got this going, and we've got Brandon coming on, and we have a plan on how to go forward with this show, is really exciting. So yeah, let's get into some news. Um,
Absolutely. What's making news around the world that's caught your eye?
Well, what's really interesting is doing some research, right, and looking around and seeing what is the uptake really on on podcasting, because we are very. It depends on where you come from, because you can be strayed depending on what you're trying to sell. So I often try to put myself in a position where I'm like, is how is podcasting really doing? So one of the things that's really making the news right now is there's this study done by Livewire.io, and their Livewire labs, and they do some really cool stuff. But not too long ago, a couple of days ago, the 1st of May, they came up with this really, really cool study. And they wanted to find out, based on a lot of data that is freely available, by the way. And if you go into this link, and if you want this link, let us know. We'll send you the link. But this is freely available data by Podcast Index. And if you go to Podcast Index, you can get a lot of really cool, freely available data. And it's about keeping all this stuff open. But the study that was done is to find out in the last few days, what kind of or in the last in the, not last few days, I apologize, in the recent past, what podcast host has been hosting most of the new episodes that have been come out. And what is really interesting is that, um, is that every single new podcast episode published, which is about 1.8 million in April. So the number of episodes that have been published in April is 1.8 million episodes, which is kind of on the up by 2.3%. And that's quite significant. 2.3% is not a small amount. So the fact that that is the case is quite insane, because that's a lot of episodes. And the study sort of tells us that Anchor hosts 25% of all podcasts right now, which is huge. So a quarter of all podcasts, new episodes that are coming out on Anchor. And then they've kind of listed based on the number of episodes, like the bulk of episodes coming out. So if you want to look at your media hosts and see which ones are hosting most of the podcasts, Anchor is number one, followed by Buzzsprout, Spreaker, Libsyn, Podbean. Now Libsyn is mine and has been hosting most of the podcasts for the longest time. But obviously the new platforms have overtaken that. So that's the big one, that is quite interesting. James, what are your thoughts? I wonder, what are your first thoughts when you see that?
Yeah, I've always been very bullish about Spotify. I think Spotify as a platform is here to stay. They've had a bit of a tumble in their stock price of late, but I think Spotify is a very, very, very big one. And I've been a Spotify listener, premium user for as long as they launched it, and I just think it's incredible that you can have access to all those things ready to go. You know, another thing that's making news is that Facebook has decided, after a year of experimentation and trying to copy off audio platforms like Clubhouse, and obviously trying to leverage podcasting, that they have decided that they're no longer going to go ahead with all their podcasting things as well. So creators will be unable to launch new shows on Facebook as of this week, and they're going to close it all together on June the 3rd. So they're going to streamline all of their audio things. They're still very bullish on audio as a focus, but they're just bringing it in to make it more streamlined in terms of their live streaming software that they're running already.
That's really interesting sort of information, because I thought it was going in the opposite direction, where Facebook was gonna like invest a lot of resources in audio, just seeing how Clubhouse did, but that didn't go according to plan, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with how popular Clubhouse has been, audio has been massive for the last 18 months. And all of these companies, you gotta take a risk and go for it with some of these things, because even though it's a very expensive failure for Facebook, the risk of getting it right, the benefit of getting it right is very, very important. So it's worth a shot. And of course, the other big thing in news is Elon Musk buying Twitter. We know that was a big thing from last week. So what were your thoughts on that, Rons? What do you think about that?
Well, it's fascinating, right? Because he was very specific about why he was buying it and how it all went down as well. Because he first wanted to become a shareholder in Twitter, and he tweeted that out, and then he was invited to be a shareholder. And then once that happened, he's like, no, I don't want to do that, because once he was a shareholder, he could not own more than 15% of the company. So there was these restrictions that were in place, and then suddenly, on the 4th of April, he kind of like on the 4th of April, he announced that he wanted that he had just bought 9.1% of Twitter, and that how the saga started. Like, it started on in a month's time, this whole thing is done, and it's quite quick how it all went down. And what's really interesting is when you ask him why he's gone for it. It's not about money making, really. It's really about having free speech, according to him. So what he says is, initially at least, is that what he wants Twitter to go through is it must include an edit feature, an open source algorithm, so that anyone can make changes to it, less moderation, and a high bar for removing offending tweets. I don't know how less moderation and high bar for removing offending tweets go together, but it's really interesting in terms of what he's after. Thoughts?
Absolutely. There's so many bots and spam accounts and things. One thing he announced that I really love is that every single individual needs to be verified as authentic. And if you can guarantee that it's a real person behind the scenes and transparency in terms of an algorithm, I think that's really, really important. And the biggest people that I'm most wary of are the ones who want to cancel everyone else's voice. They are I'm very big on conversation and transparency around those things. I'd much rather try and understand where someone else is coming from. And obviously, if you cancel them, they're not able to do that. Let's move into today's tactic as well, Ron. So I'm going to hand it over to you. What can we do to make sure our podcast is heard by the right people?
Yeah, and today's show, I mean, basically one of the things that we get asked the most is about the audience, right? It's about making sure that our listener actually gets what or our podcast does what it's meant to do for the business. And what tends to happen is it's hard for us to break it all down and think about how the audience is meant to perceive or where to create the podcast. And the reason for this framework and the reason to break this down in this particular way is because we have to understand as business owners that there are three main types of audiences that we have to create content for, right? So the content that we create has to be different for these three types of audiences. Even though you know who your clients are, they are very, very different at the start of the acquisition process. So let's break this down so that we understand this, okay? So at the start, there is the market. The market now could be, for example, business owners could be the market. And if you specifically look after women business owners, then your market becomes women business owners. So there is a market out there. It is the market which exists out there. The market. So it's usually when someone says niche down, you niche down from there. So the market could be business owners. Your market could be very specific and niche down into um, uh, women business owners. If we go by that example, so the market, your market, from once you have women business owners, there are three steps. You got to get them to know who you are. So these are the people who know who you are, and then you got to get them, once they know who you are for the first time, you got to get them to like who you are and then trust who you are before you have a method to sell to them. And the reason you got to have these different types of audiences is because they need different messages. When your market, oops, when your market sees content, it's got to be content that you create to get attention. So that content is to get to know who you are. Okay? So your market needs to see content to get to know who you are. Once they get to know who you are, you have to have a specific method to create content where they get to like who you are. Because because you don't want to create content for people who like who you are who don't know who you are, because that's a big mismatch. So once they get to know who you are and get to like who you are, you want to then create specific content to trust you, and then you sell to those people. So you got to create different types of content. You got to create content to get attention, you got to create content to get engagement, and you got to create content to get sales. So the obvious question in this whole equation is how or where does your podcast fit into this equation? And it fits right here. It fits right here. It fits in the content to get engagement. Your podcast is all the content you ever need to get engagement. So if you create a podcast that is engaging, then you create the engagement portion of your podcast. Then you create attention pieces. So you create from this engagement, you create your social media. So from here, you create your social media that is content to get your attention. And from this place where you have your engagement, you take those people into the content you have for sales. We have Brandon joining us, so I'm just going to let him join. So while you can see this, you have content that gets you attention, gets you engagement and gets you sales. Your podcast fits into this engagement piece. So that way, when you're creating your podcast, you're always creating your podcast for people who already know who you are, and they are getting to understand who you are and like who you are. So that's how you create content for the right people rather than content for your clients or for the market, and forget that you're creating content for this middle section here. I wonder what's landed, James, when you look at that framework.
Yeah, I think it's great. All roads lead back to audience, or almost all roads lead back to audience when it comes to wanting to be serious about your podcast or growing your business. Most people don't really have an idea of that. So yeah, I think that's great, Rons. Well done.
Yeah, amazing. And we have the legend that is Brandon in the house. How are you,
Oh,
Brandon?
I could
I'm doing great. How's it going?
I can feel that I can feel the power already, Mr. Adams. This is great. For those who don't know Brandon, he's a video marketing expert, renowned speaker, seasoned podcaster, Emmy Award winning TV producer, as you can tell by this amazing lineup of awards he has behind him, an advisor to more than 20 companies. He's raised more than $35 million as a crowdfunding expert, worked with people like Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank, Jeff Hoffman, who's the founder of Priceline.com, people like John Lee Dumas from EO Fire, as well as the nonprofit X Prize. Brandon, we're talking about growing your business and things. Say, what do you believe separates a good business from a great one?
A good business from a great one, it comes down to the team. I think, yeah, you obviously got to have a great idea, concept, but ideas are shit without action. So if you don't have somebody that's behind there steering it and taking action, if you don't have the right dream team in place, it's never going to become a great idea. It's never going to scale. I look at some of the companies we're a part of right now that are doing 20, 30 million a year and have the ability to scale to over 100 million a year. They have a great team. So you got to have the right advisory board and team in place. And if you don't, you only can go so far. You might have a nice business where you make a couple 100,000 or maybe a million a year, but it's never going to get to the point where it can be scalable.
Mm. Love that. I love that. And mate, it's a noisy world at the moment. What can people do to stand out? You're obviously doing a ton of work with things like video marketing. You're working in a bunch of different industries. How do people stand out in 2022?
I mean, video is the most powerful way. So this is I look at this. So you guys know I talk about this a lot. It's video and it's storytelling. We all have a story, and I believe people buy into stories. They buy from people they like, trust, and know. But if you can learn to communicate a story and a message in a powerful way, people get to see who you are. They get to see more about your story, and they fall in love with that. And that's that you got to be good at what you do. But if you have a powerful story that you share, they're going to buy into that. And I really believe the best way to tell a powerful story is through video. So there's a few things here. For one, when people can see your eyes when we're talking here via video, it's proven people are more likely to like you and trust you if they can see your eyes. Also, there's a lot of communication that happens with hand gestures. So when I'm using my hands, when I'm smiling, it's actually proven when people see you smile, they see you as a nice person. So these are little things in communication that is building more like and trust. It's through video. Now, if you can communicate a story message through a video, and you can do it in a very powerful way through an edit, if you're editing some kind of project like a sizzle video, or we've done films, we've done movies, we've done different projects, you can really draw that crowd in and tell a powerful story. If you can learn to do that, you can drive more traffic to your business. You can build a brand that ultimately allow you to generate more revenue for your business. And from us, we've raised tens of millions of dollars. We've done large product deals. We've done different influencer campaigns. Video is the way to stand out. And that would be what I would say to stand out. Tell your story and then also utilize video marketing. It's one of the best things you can do right now.
So, Brandon, when thank you for doing this, by the way, and making the time to come on this run of
Always.
a little experiment that we're on, where we want to create useful content. But when we've been doing content for a while, you've been doing content for a while. When you look at people creating content, what do you think is the biggest mistake that they kind of land up making that you wish they kind of knew this little nuance that will help them make better content for their audience?
Great question. People get caught up in it being perfect. They think it needs to be movie quality. It needs to be just right. And I think also sometimes it's set up too legit, where people don't see you as a human. They just see you as this untouchable influencer. And so I've created that content. We've created shows and high quality video content that has a time and place, and it's great. But I think most people underestimate the power of what you can do with the phone, with creating content with your phone, bringing people into your life, sharing who you are as a person, doing, whether you're doing a Facebook Live, Instagram Live, you're doing Instagram stories, or even like I had a video I posted yesterday morning where I literally just made myself so human. I shared just something really like about myself. It was about how I wake up some mornings, and some mornings I feel like shit and I don't want to work out. I don't want to go and do work. I actually have all this doubt and fear, all these things that come in my mind. I start questioning my success. But what I do is I go and work out. I read. I have all these different things I do to attack that, and then I feel better. And I did a video sharing that, and it got a bunch of views. It got a bunch of likes. People reach out because it made me human. And so I think the thing that most people forget to do is to just be a human and share who they are as a person, share what they do for a living, and do that and share that with the world. And you just need an iPhone. And when you do that, you not only